I'm back. Sorry. We can start.
Yeah, yeah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our next round of panel discussion. This panel discussion, the topic will be Insurtech and Bancassurance, Trends and Collaboration. Our panelists for this discussion will be Mr. Nikhil Verma, EVP and Business Head, Bancassurance, Aviva India Life Insurance, who will be moderating the session. Mr. Anup Seth, Chief Distribution Officer, Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance. Mr. Amrish Kher, Senior Vice President, IT, Max Life Insurance Company, and Mr. Aseem Gupta, Director and Head, Bancassurance, Max Bupa Health Insurance Company. So over to you, Mr. Nikhil Verma, for moderating the session. Stay tuned, guys, and hope to see a very insightful discussion on Insurtech and Bancassurance.
Thank you, Aman. Thank you so much. And again, a very warm welcome to all my co-panelists and, of course, all the live audiences. Thank you so much. Basically, the context has already been set. I believe today we are quite in a situation where we are discussing two worlds. I think this is probably going to be only one of those pandemics where the recovery is also as fast. Earlier pandemics you would have all heard or probably read that it has taken maybe 20 years, 30 years, 40 years to come back on actual revival. But probably I think this time the revival has been quicker thanks to all the COVID warriors, I would say, who are working day in and day out to get us out of these pandemic situations. So I think that's really good. Most of the other industries also are gearing up in terms of how things are reviving. Some of them have already started giving that green light. Some of them are in the process of giving the green light and see how things can improve. I think that is an interesting situation now where we'll have to see how we as an industry is going to revive. So we're going to divide the discussion across three parameters. One, how are life insurers get maybe from sales perspective on the digital route or from a service perspective on the digital route. How are banks coping up to this? Because we are in an open architecture environment where we all know that everybody will have to be extremely competitive in this space to look at how banks are going to be serviced. And the third element is customer. How are customers responding to it? Because customer, maybe yes, we are in a digital era, but I think there are various other segments here. If you look at there is a population we cater to in the metro. There is urban, there is semi-urban, there is rural, and how these customers from millennial to 50 plus age bands. I think everybody has their different way of different expectations. So I believe we will now have to understand how we need to really cater to all these three elements. So to start with, I know that digital is a very in thing that we've been discussing even before pandemic. So there was some amount of preparedness that we already had. We had started doing things differently to bring our overall cost down and operational efficiencies. We were trying. I think most of us also have failed in our own ways and tried and evolved by doing something new all the time. But in the last 18 months, I'm sure things have changed, and a lot of them would have now had the implementation going on, and things probably would have been reciprocated much better than what it used to be before COVID world. So maybe Anup, if I can just ask you, what was it pre-COVID, and what is it that you saw in the last 4 months when it comes to being prepared for this kind of a pandemic?
Thanks, Nikhil. It's a completely relevant question at this time. This pandemic has certainly changed a lot of things for all of us. In fact, I see this pandemic doing a structural shift as what happened when demon happened to payments. In 2014, when demon happened, India completely moved to a digital payment suite. And in this pandemic, because of the social distancing norm, because of people not operating from their office location, I think clearly what needed to pivot is the entire front to back experience of the customer needed to change. Right from the time you acquired the customer to engage, to service, to upsell and cross sell, the entire life cycle had to move digitally. Fortunately, at ET Life, we saw this thing. We are a young life insurance company. We were the last to enter life insurance. We were probably born digital in that sense of it. So we didn't have the legacy of having big, bulky enterprise solutions, which prevented a sort of digital approach. We were able to respond with digital assets called Dial for Success. It's essentially made the entire from the acquisition journey to the need analysis journey to the onboarding journey. All these assets were digitalized through a tool called Dial for Success, and which is what gave us a distinct advantage in that financial year. We were one of the only life insurance companies to have grown all months in the year. In fact, our banker business grew by almost 58% in that financial year, FY21. What pivoted us is the fact that we understood that COVID is here to stay. Your response can be measured with the fact that you think it's temporary or is permanent. We pivoted with the fact that it's permanent to stay. And that certainly brought not only improvement in our efficiencies on our sales cycle, but also improved significant customer experience on onboarding. I'll give you some anecdotal example around service. Our TNPS scores, which is a transaction net promoter scores, improved by almost 28% over FY20 over FY21. Now that happened because, see, digital has its own unique ways. What it does is it takes over the arbitrage of the agent knowledge and the agent bias towards a platform making a recommendation based on what's your life stage and what are the products and solutions that we have to service you. And then the recommendation is based on that. The entire recommendation system changed to a focus on more goal-based selling, focus on more need analysis led, and that brought uniformity of different order. What it also did is for our distributors, it no longer made them go into this face-to-face model, because face-to-face model has limitation, right? You can at best meet 3 clients a day, 4 clients a day, and do advisory. But in digital, your ability to be able to advise clients digitally, connect from one meeting to another meeting is so simple and so seamless that we saw efficiency on agent productivity. And
productivity is improved.
It's significantly improved. I think
True.
digital has been a blessing in disguise, and in anything, COVID has only fast-tracked our digital journeys and improved our customer experience and improved our agent productivity. So this is here to stay.
That's interesting.
And I really hope that all of us build on that further and take it to the next level. Yeah, that's from my side.
Yeah. So that was an important point. I think productivity is improved is what is I drive out of this. So I think it is nothing really impacted. It has in fact improved business. So Amrish, maybe some insight from you in terms of how the internal stakeholders responded. Let's say IT, because they would have probably had the toughest time. How would compliance respond to it? How is operations responding to it? So internal stakeholders, how was their response?
Thanks, Nikhil. I think
how were they prepared?
Thanks, Nikhil. I think first and foremost, quickly to introduce myself, I, of course, working with Max Life, heading the distribution channel for Axis Bank partnership. And great to have be with you guys over here in this panel, honestly, with stalwart industry colleagues from Bancassurance, honestly. So I think, Nikhil, answering your question on COVID, I think to begin with, I kind of use this term as an acronym now called creating convenience in digital. If you read COVID, while I know it's caused a lot of negative impact everywhere, but I think somewhere it's also created a lot of convenience in digital for everybody, be it the consumers, employees, or the partners. I think it's all over. To your question about how did everybody respond, I think the resilience in the organization has truly played out, because when I look back at the last year gone past, we as a company grew very well at over 20%, and our distribution channel that I manage, which is Axis, we had a growth of over 35%. I think one of the best across the industry, and clearly in the large banks, one of the best growth. And that actually came on the backing of all functions coming together for a common goal. Because, at that juncture when COVID hit us all in March 2020, early in March 2020, I think we were all kind of, we lost our best ever month, which was always used to be March. But then to kind of recoup from there and set the processes, I think everybody played well for it, be it compliance to begin with. I mean, there's been this requirement of a wet signature. We actually did away with that. So, the process actually became completely digital, which was a home-to-home sales, as we coined it, where we could do an end-to-end journey. And within the bank integration, you understand there's also a leg of lead generation to fulfillment and then the policy closure. So the entire operations piece kind of I would say, supported us in terms of creating a more seamless, easy process. Technology worked, I would say, overnight. I mean, I can't thank those guys enough to really enable us to deliver what we did. And similarly, compliance and legal to kind of give us a way out to make sure that we are compliant while we are selling. So I think the entire ecosystem worked phenomenally well together to kind of bounce back and deliver what we did. And essentially, what I think Anup was also saying, if I look at all the three legs, which is actually prospecting, onboarding, servicing the customer, all the three legs became completely digital, which could have taken its own due course. But I think given the COVID impact, it all got much more accelerated and we were able to deliver. More importantly, at this juncture, I think as distribution leaders, I'm sure all of you would be equally keen to get to know this. One of the things that all of us miss, and that is the core of distribution, it is governance and engagement. I'm glad to share that over this whole year, we were able to completely digitize our even the governance and engagement process, and that too with the bank. So currently, we have a complete digitized sales management process, which actually is a delight to the bank and kind of gives us more predictability and sustainability in our business as well. So that's how it has gone past,
Yeah.
Nikhil.
That's great. So I think the digital infrastructure was actually more in place. It's just that now they actually came to limelight. I always know that sales always hogs the entire limelight whenever they are in action. So I think last 18 months it was the non-sales which actually came forward and said, "Okay, boss, hum bhi hai, hum bhi karenge." Yes. So Asim, how is health sector reacting to this? I'm sure numbers are already on the board and everybody in the industry watched the health sector very closely because you would have definitely come out of nowhere and produce some. But in terms of already you had, but how has it been
For health,
after COVID
Nikhil,
era? I mean, I know before COVID things were. Yes, please.
so health, just to kind of add on to whatever happened due to COVID, I think one good part, at least everybody started taking health insurance uh, as a given that this is something which is needed for everyone. So with that kind of pressure coming on increase for all of us, because if it was life as natural, we would have been growing at about 18-20%, and like maybe life insurance maybe about a 30%. But suddenly when everybody was looking at health insurance, the growth was close to about a 40-45% for Max Bupa. And what then it did was that IT, systems, and everything even became more important for all of us. So there were customers who were wanting to buy health insurance, and here were a large force of bancassurance team or agency folks who were uh, kind of designed to sell in a particular manner by going out in the branch, meeting the customers, meeting the branch staff, and suddenly overnight you had to change it. So to my mind, there is a demand suddenly which is increasing, and then there is a huge amount of change that you're going through. So it was phenomenal change for us. Kudos to, I think, IT folks and operations folks to change it overnight, and I would say kudos to the bank assurance banks per se, suddenly changing, because no customer was earlier walking into a bank branch and saying, "Hey, I want to buy a health insurance today." To suddenly to change that and say bank to last year we grew at about 60-61% on the bank assurance side, on a smaller base. Amish, I'm not taking away that 35% from you. We had a much smaller base, but that's there is it is here to stay. It is actually here to stay. I would say, Nikhil, what we've loved about the entire change, like Amrish mentioned about being able to do our governance meeting over calls and over WhatsApps of the world and over Google Meets. So there is a lot of things that are going to stay back, but some things that are going to change. I am on the road today. Like most bank assurance people, unless we meet people and we greet bankers, really the day didn't start. But a lot of going things on the health insurance side are definitely going to be changing.
True. Very true, very true. But I want to just touch base one more angle. Maybe Anup, if you can guide us there. See, there's always a discussion that goes on in many of these companies. Digital sales is overall still a very small component when you look at the overall insurance business. Now, that component was only about 2%. Now that 2% will probably become 4%. and there are only the aggregators who probably take a major share here, obviously, because you'll obviously have some of them who would have taken this lead a decade back, and they would have probably got this. But in bank assurance, within bank assurance, today we all know that we are all largely bankers are doing it either with face-to-face selling or with some amount of tele-assist and so on and so forth. How do you see that digital medium actually coming in to actually increase the sales actually happening online? I mean, what is it? How do you think Anup Bank is going to respond to this, and how will it really happen, or how far is it where the major share will come from the online sales in Banca?
So I think, Nikhil, a very interesting question. Let me respond that in three parts. One is, I think, taking from what even Amrish mentioned, that it's not just the prospecting or the selling part of the hitch which has moved online. It's the governance. It's the entire pre and post that has moved online, which means the entire digital stack has been built for a full journey of customer. To going to your question about digital being a small part of it, let me try and sort of explain from my eyes what digital means. Digital is about trying to find a customer problem and trying to find an online technology way of solving it. The point that you made about aggregators, which is essentially the way you see life insurance as buy online versus sell online. The buy online is typically a 4 to 5%, which is largely consumers buying term online through aggregators and direct website URLs. The point is that market has doubled. That market is today poised to be a 4,000 crore market, and 4,000 crore market is typically, just to give you, is the sum total share of last bottom 7 life insurance companies put together don't even do 4,000 crores. So that's the market that's already pivoted online on pure buy online. The sell online world has moved to a very different genre. The sell online is now saying, from earlier being 90% face-to-face selling to 90% of the selling process happens digitally. So pivot is not around, even the sell online has managed to capture the customer imagination, remove the inefficiencies that were there in the offline world, where the process depended on the agent understanding, the agent capability, the agent remuneration. Those are removed because now there is a standard tool which says, if the need of the customer is to protect liability, hey, recommend protection. If the customer needed to provide for child plan, here is the option around either ULIP based or traditional based child plan to protect. The tool itself takes away the biasness, democratize the process. Any process that democratizes, makes it transparent, creates the biasness, removes the biasness, is in interest for the customer. And that's where even banks and non-bank based distribution have pivoted online. I'll tell you a unique thing about online and how banks are utilizing it. See, banks have an immense wealth of customer knowledge because of the transaction history that they have. Imagine, coupled with that, with creating data engine based lookalikes in customers who look like me, who think like me, are at my profile. Your ability to recommend a customer like me a perfect proposition using data analytics digital and using bank IP and information becomes so immense. You're almost taking away the noise level of customer. You no longer are going to exploration of saying, do I know the customer? Do I know where he belongs to? What does he require? You're having a chance of doing data models, and hence your ability to be able to advise, which is what I say is sell online, becomes even more better. And that banks have seen. The element I'll tell you, the removing the paper out of the whole equation has changed the convenience of a different order. Today, we don't take any KYC because there is an KYC available, there is an Aadhaar KYC. All that has become so seamless, and customer now has the ability to not only sort of make a value judgment because the information is so transparently available on the manufacturer's platform that he knows he's buying a product which is non-par, which has so much PPT, PT, so much IRR. What's the customer saying? What's the trade saying? How does the product rank? Because of what you can see at aggregators, the market has become more transparent, and transparent market always creates value for all stakeholders. initially creates a little bit of hitch, but longer term creates more value for everybody. Is the way I see it.
That's right. So you're probably talking about digital assist is something which is actually helping us to grow the overall business. So I can say digital sales, but digital assist could be the right
Yeah.
terminology which is actually helping us improve overall business. Okay, coming to Amrish. So Amrish, how are banks coping up to this? I'm sure banks are excited because banks obviously are slightly ahead in the digital transformation journey because they are they have transitioned to digital era slightly ahead of us. Maybe we are just coping up with coming up with our different ideas and creativity and trying to integrate with them in some or the other way. But how do you think they are now in their priority list? Where is life insurance when it is coming
So,
to assisting the overall sale process or service process? How are banks coping up,
so,
Amrish?
so thanks, Nikhil. In fact, being a banker for a decade almost before this, I think, I've been doing this for a living, and I can only tell you, adding on to what Anup was saying, I think clearly the selling journey, sell online journey, I think has become a norm of the industry, be it life insurance, be it health insurance. I think that's a given now. And that had to happen because if you had to reduce the seller friction and create convenience for the seller in a bank, and basically, give him the return on effort. And I used to discuss this with Asim when he graduated from life to health industry, that health as a bank preferred product was never a preferred product given the fact that it had low revenue. But if you created convenient journeys, you could really get the banker on your side because then he saw very minimal effort but good return on the effort, and that is what really mattered to the bankers from a thinking perspective. Coming to your second part, which you were asking even Anup, and I'm very keen to touch upon that, Nikhil, is how is this Kona buy online journey improve? I think one of the gaps that has existed in the industry, and I'm sure all of you would agree, all of us have kept the product side extremely complicated so far. I mean, there is no real standardization, or I would say commoditization of the products which have happened, except for term insurance. Or on the GI side, if you were to look at probably a travel or a motor at the best possible. Okay. And that is what is one thing which is plaguing the moment the product starts getting more commoditized. And I think clearly the process gaps start getting easier because today the regulatory framework, the processes that we put in are still, and that is exactly, if you look at all the insurtechs, they are exactly thriving on those gaps that the conventional industry has left around the process and the products categorically. So the moment the banks start looking at that element much more cleaner, much more closer, it is certainly going to impact the buy online journey. The second piece that I want to touch upon, and this is exactly to Anup what he was mentioning, I actually started a project in my previous organization, IndusInd, which was around the transaction-led insurance journey. And we realized that the bank truly has a lot of rich data from a transaction perspective, from a profile of a customer perspective. So if you realize the entire e-commerce industry, they work on how, when, what, and the journey. In the financial space, and especially in the insurance space, we still haven't gone to that micro level of thinking and planning. But that's exactly the kind of offers that I was working on. And this primarily would apply a little more to the GI industry since I've done that in the past, and that's the low hanging fruit. Is assuming that a customer has gone to a Chroma shop and bought something. That transaction has already hit your system. That is a credit card transaction of 50,000 rupees. If there was a message which could go to the customer then and there, would you like to insure this right away by just clicking and doing a bit.ly journey? It's a big, I would say, explosion to happen. Similarly, even on life insurance or health insurance, I think we are still not capturing all the triggers. And that's what we are also working within Max Life. Let's give you an example. With the bank, we are working on something called as Nudge Bot, which is today, the banker usually is lost in whom to pitch, when to pitch, what to pitch. We are trying to create a nudge where he knows that this customer's got his bonus and he's sitting in front of you. He just got a big, and so the product that he would be, and given the fact that he has it's like a real-time nudge is what I'm trying to tell you, which will help better prospecting, is the whole thing. To pick up from the banking digitization, I'm sure you would know that, at IndusInd Bank, we were one of the first pioneers to launch WhatsApp banking, video banking. Trust my word, I think while as of now, all of these percentages look very small, and we are still talking about a phygital journey. So it's a graduation which is happening. We were all physical, then we moved to phygital. And the way I see this, and running one of the largest banker distribution, I can assure you, we are soon going to be moving completely digital. So it's just a matter of time, and that journey is getting covered steadily. So it's just about, creating the right products, propositions, and uh, the customers. The journey is going to really start moving that direction. Is what I wanted to. Sorry, I was talking about the WhatsApp banking. So WhatsApp is something that would be the next purchase methodology. Again, I said regulatory framework has to ease out to kind of enable some of these purchases. Right now, we've done a journey with Axis Bank where we are giving them a D2C journey on WhatsApp, but that's still I would say, a link based. So you do a WhatsApp transaction, you get a link, and you click on that, and you can complete a complete purchase of the term insurance. But can it translate to all other products soon? The answer is yes. So it's just a. And another thing, sorry, I'm just touching on a few things that have happened in the bank side and are happening consistently as we speak, are creating marketplaces. Given the open architecture, today bank in some sense is almost like a web aggregator, if you were to ask me, with almost 9 partners available to them. So each bank is already talking, and I started this in Indus Access is already starting it off very soon. Uh, and you will see marketplaces coming up in banks where they will have these offers and products and multiple products of various insurance companies all right there, like an Amazon, and being bought by customers. So it's only about working on the journeys, experiences, product commoditization, nudges, analytics to couple it with hyper personalization. You put it all together. I can assure you, in the next 5 to 10 years, Nikhil, we will see a huge, movement from where we are.
Shift. Shift. I really like that could probably enable increase in sales other than term. I think that was one cue which I think is very interesting. I like the chat that you did about the WhatsApp initiative where we send and then the customer can go through that process and complete the sales journey online. I think that's very interesting. Asim, some insights from you in terms of how are customers responding to it. Now, customers obviously, Asif, Amrish has covered about I think Axis Bank kind of a partner, and their communication with the customer is relatively easier compared to, let's say, a customer from a PSU bank or any other small bank, where obviously the customer at 40, 50 years, where actually they have a lot of money and they can invest big ticket sizes, they don't respond as well as much as a millennials would respond in today's dynamics. So how is customer responding to you, Asim?
Nikhil, like we spoke about, I think health is becoming relevant today.
I think there is some technical issue, and which is why probably we're not able to hear Asim. Yes, Asim, are you there? Okay, seems to be some small glitch.
He's obviously
there.
on the road. Yeah.
On the road, yes. Busy selling. Health sector is booming. So anyway, Anup, if I can ask the same question to you, how are customers responding to this new, I would say, digital revolution, where earlier he was assisted, these agents and bankers and all the channel partners, they assist the customer, and they're used to getting that assistance always. And I have seen that in my 21 years of history, and I'm so do Amrish or yourself. How will that mindset change in the customer when he has to do it all by himself without any great assistance? How do you think that changing?
So I think Asim would have been best placed to answer this, but let me try and attempt it. Nikhil, so what has happened, and I'll link it back to conversation that Amrish made, and a while back I pivoted around it, is the fact that what is happening now is irreversible. And when I say it's irreversible, I'll give you a reason. When I say things become irreversible is when the new being is a better being. Now, the new being better for the distributor, which is the seller, because it makes him more efficient. It allows him not to sort of remember everything, but now have it in a system where it guides him, saying right from time you first engage with the customer to you nudged him to finding his need, to nudged him to recommending a solution, to nudged him to onboarding, to nudge him to servicing. You now have tools which make the seller more efficient. You now have tools which get the customer to be more democratized in the manner in which he's choosing. So it almost feels like he's making a transaction of a buy vis-a-vis a sell. To us, it becomes a more efficiency game, because for us, we want to go to market with our value offering to acquire as many customers as we as would like to. If it's efficient for us, if it's efficient for the distributor, which is either bank or the individual agent, and it's efficient for the customer, these changes are irreversible. And in my view, when changes are irreversible, the cut that we do is Gen Z, Millennium, the elder population is all goes up. The cuts of metro, non-metro go off. I can give you a matter of fact. I come from e-commerce trade. I've spent almost a decade in e-com. Today, 70% of the transaction of e-com is beyond the 10 cities. Today,
Correct.
travel is 98% online and 2% offline. What has happened to insurance because of this COVID and pandemic, and because of we've digitalized asset, we've understood data wheels, we understood recommendation much better, our IT systems, our regulator has become more pro-digital. And I can really not thank the regulator for timely intervention that he did on policy decision to enable it. When the entire ecosystem is becoming more efficient, this irreversible change. And I can tell you today, I run a bank, I run 3 banks. So CSB Bank has Kerala as a predominant base. Kerala, while it has higher literacy, but was not most ahead on terms of technology. But there, our processes are 100% digital. We were digital in 2000 FY20, not even FY21. We run FinCase Small Finance Bank. FinCase Small Finance Bank is probably like us, born digital. They do everything digital. They were like a mobile banking based model, and they run everything. So we had almost equation where our partners were digital, and when we came with offering, our customers became digital, our sellers became digital, and as a manufacturer, we had to pivot in terms of creating more utility and tools so that the journeys don't have breaks. Because probably the issue is, if your tools are built on different application, then handshake between tools will break the experience. And in today's mind, what Amrish said, it's about planning journeys. It's not about planning utilities, not about planning applications, it's about planning journeys. How to make the journeys seamless. As the journeys become better, I can tell you this is here to stay. Irreversible change is here for you to stay.
That's great. Amrish, some thoughts from you, let's probably change the question a little bit. How are customers, let's say, from a rural area, or I would say from a tier 3 or a tier 4 cities, how are they responding to this digital transformation? And I'll try to build an analogy here. I know that, let's say, if I talk to you about Flipkart or Amazon, they say that, the customers in these tier 3, tier 4 areas respond very well in terms of for them, they see convenience buying in online compared to responded in these markets.
Sorry, I lost you, Nikhil. Hello?
Yeah.
Nikhil, I
So
lost
I'll
you.
just repeat my last sentence. How do you
Yeah,
think
sorry,
that?
please.
Yeah. So are you able to hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes. Go ahead, Nikhil.
Are you able to? Yes. So
Yes,
I'm asking,
yes.
how is the customer from a tier 3 or a tier 4 responding to you compared to a metro or urban customer
So, Nikhil, I will first.
on the digital mode?
Yeah, yeah. I will. I think I'll answer it this way. I think ours is a very distributor-led industry for a very, very long time. The mindset change needs to happen more at the distribution level rather than at the customer level. I can only tell you, and seconding you on what you said, the customer adoption to digital is very, very convenient and easy. And I'll tell you where I'm coming from. So, the last COVID wave hit us. I tried to push my team to say that we got to sell digital. I mean, and I was trying to build the conviction. I'm just picking up from your previous question that you asked, Anup. If there was a time to sell insurance, of course, health is blessed completely. But even life insurance, for that matter, three things that we've always said and has been an objection by a customer: no time, no need, and no money. Guess what? All the three have vanished, fortunately, because of the work from home opportunity, giving people time. The money is certainly there, given that the banking FD rates have gone down and there are very limited opportunities to invest. And need, I mean, nothing more would have made it more prominent than the pandemic in terms of creating a, I would say, a pull need for both the product lines clearly. So the customer is there to buy. It is now coming to the fact that are we able to translate that conviction in the distribution team, to say that customers will buy digital, will buy from home to home? The honest answer is yes, we saw that adoption happening more in metros, while that adoption did not so easily happen on the rural or the category tier 4, tier 5 cities, because I run a network which is across all kind of cities. But again, when we look at a assisted journey, now that has seen adoption across everywhere. So today, the verification happens on an OTP, which is kind of very convenient for a rural or a urban customer. I mean, as we were discussing earlier, Nikhil, between me, Anup, everybody, the more seamless you make a process, the adoption is bound to happen, because there's no really difference between I mean, the easier you make it. We had medical center issues earlier. Now today we have video MER. That's pretty much solves for the entire ease. I mean, if you were to ask me, you have video KYC. If you can just show your KYC and that gets done, or you kind of just enter your account number, it gets populated from the bank clearly. You are just easing off a process. So I don't see any challenges that a non-urban customer would not love to adopt or is not adopting. It is the selling piece, which is to say that can I sit here and sell to a rural customer sitting at home? I would still say yes, it requires a personal connect, it requires a personal meeting to engage and kind of get it going. But I don't see that also as a thing which cannot be overcome in a later part of time. So that's my thought on the rural and the urban divide here.
That's great. So you are in short saying that irrespective of where the customer is, I think these enablers on the digital side is eventually going to benefit, whether he's from a rural background, whether he's coming from a rural city or he's coming from a metro city. It's not going to change as long as we have created convenience to most of the. Yes.
I'll give you one more example, Nikhil. You know, I'm sure all of us would agree, mis-selling used to be something that used to plague our industry many years back. You know, we all kind of grappled with it and figured out what is to be done, how is it to be done, and we were doing these calling, and then we realized frauds happening, and more, I would say, importantly, they were happening in rural areas because there was lack of understanding and there was high trust levels. You know, when in IndusInd Bank in my last role, about 4 years back, we kind of implemented a solution of video MER, which just became a norm, and we were kind of wondering that this could be a resistant across rural branches where customers would not be comfortable recording in a vernacular language or a video. But it actually happened, and 99% of my sales were happening through a video MER. So it kind of completely cut off that chain and got our complaint level way below, pretty much much lower than we could have expected, and a much higher persistency. So I would only keep reiterating, keep the process simple, people will adopt.
Great. Asim, some thoughts from you from the health insurance perspective. Yes, Asim.
Yeah, so quickly taking your previous question as well, I hope the system stays stable. On the customer side, like Nikhil, I was mentioning earlier, and what Anup and Amrish have been talking about, there have been a definite positive trend or acceptance on the entire digital piece. Okay, customer is more than willing to go and talk to us, whether it is over a video, whether a WhatsApp. They have opened up, and it's not just limited to the urban centers. They're definitely opening up in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and even further on. Even if you were to look at different banks, whether you talk about Indian private banks, the large private banks, or the smaller ones, or the PSUs, Nikhil, today, interestingly, the customer behavior is very similar. I would want to pick up what Amrish and Anup have been talking about. It's actually the seller. Once they decide that this is how they would want to take it up, uh, your job is kind of easier. What you need to do is really create those platforms which are simpler, easy to execute, and then move forward on it. So that's what we've been kind of looking at. And if you were to look at all three, whether it is a customer, and from customer, it is about lead generation for life insurance or for health insurance. You need to know, and digital, whether you look at analytics, and that has got kind of, I would say, been more in focus than ever. Saying when a customer needs, like Amrish was talking about, can I be there when a customer needs me? When he's purchasing at a Chroma store, can I ping him and say, hey, cover your appliance or cover your car or so and so forth? So that has come to the fore, saying, can I reach out to my customer at the time customer needs it? From a distributor perspective, it's about making the life simpler, especially in the bank assurance, with the market, with the open architecture, 9 insurance companies and multiple of products. Unless you make the life simpler for the seller and intuitive, and that's what all of it has kind of got accentuated, because earlier we were saying, hey, there is an RM who will help you go and work with you, go to the customer and sell. That all needs to be kind of working through the assisted model journey. RM will still be needed, but we've been able to implement something called a virtual insurance partner. We knew that with the pandemic and with kind of geography spreads that some of the large banks have, you will never be able to put the person across all the branches. And that model today supports close to about 3,000 branches completely virtually. The person is available 24/7. All those things that a person is not in the branch have been kind of taken away. And to the insurance company, I think like all of my friends here are mentioning, those issues of mis-selling, about the policy got picked up, the documents are missing. It'll take a few days to get those documents. It's easing our life. Definitely, what has happened to all of us in last 1.5 years is in some form or fashion. I think we're going back to college, learning a lot of things, and hopefully come out as a postgraduate by the end of this.
Very true, Asim.
Very well. Very well
I'm just
put.
I'm just entering my last segment now. Interestingly, I think most of us within our own companies been talking about API. I know, I mean, that's become a favorite buzzword, and everybody's been talking about it. How do we so because so this business is largely manpower driven today, whether it is life, general, or health, and is going forward. What do you think as an industry we're going to do? API with tele, API with virtual assistant, or in what format the future looks like in bank assurance, as per you, Asim?
Future of bank assurance is a lot of us, what Amrish mentioned, that digital. I don't see it moving completely to digital, but an assisted model is something that is here to stay for a very, very long time. That cycle, to my mind, is the next 5 year cycle, wherein you will try to move more and more digital, but there will be customers. Our journeys today, like, and I think Anup or Amrish mentioned about regulatory help. There'll be help from the partners. How much data can you pick up? So if all of us can collaborate, and I and Amrish work in few partnerships together, if a customer has bought a life insurance, and if that kind of gets captured and is valid for health insurance for a few months, those are the things that the customer, unless you really capture it and say, boss, sab kuch digital ho gaya hai, your data is there now, it is accessible across banks. To my mind, it is going to be a digital assisted model for a very long cycle. And this one is looking like a 5 to 7 year cycle till the time we really turn it around and say, boss, you're going to be an Amazon or Ubers of the world. That, to my mind, and insurance will, in India, it'll take some more time. We're more used to seeing a face, at least talking and over a video now. That is getting used to it. So I'll start seeing sales over videos, is how I see it
Okay.
over a period of time.
Okay. Amrish, what's your take? Because I'm sure if I'm talking about MNCs or private banks, today I think gone are the days when we used to go to bank regularly. So being when you're a customer for bank, technically you are only on your either in your WhatsApp, or if you're in your on app doing your app banking or through online. Largely, I think you don't go to a bank. So how do you think is saying? Do you agree with him, or do you think there is a possibility that the phygital model will stay, but the manpower. Let's say, for example, to a bank like you're servicing a bank with Axis, you may have about, let's say, hypothetically 2,000 odd people. How do you think that EOM, which is another favorite within our companies, how do you think if cost efficiency has to come, eventually we'll have to bring our costs down? How do you think it would be from a private or MNC bank perspective going forward?
So, Nikhil, again, an advantage that I have having worked both
Yes,
sides.
Amrish.
At one point of time, I have kind of um, ignored the EOM and looked at kind of giving ample manpower to my bank branches. And now on the other side, as you rightly mentioned, I run up a team of about 4,000 odd people supporting the bank branches. Let me tell you, I think I picked this efficiency from health insurance companies. They don't operate with such large manpowers, and despite which they produce a very strong productivity. So again, I think it is just about continuing to innovate on products and processes, which will sooner or later kind of, I would say, reduce this need of manpower. Because essentially, as much as manpower that you deploy, you will never be able to cover 100% population of a bank. And you cannot be there to assist on every possible sale. And hence, you have to create, I would say, intuitive journeys, the nudge bots that I'm talking about, the virtual assist model that Asim is talking about, the fulfillment journey, where the seller has to completely become independent, where he's able to engage and close an insurance sale on his own. And I can give you a very real example that I implemented about 6 years back with one of the health insurance companies. In the bank that I was running the business for, we had almost 10,000 sellers, and we had about 100 people from the insurance company to support us. Now, there was no way in hell that 10,000 people could have started selling a health insurance policy with the support of 100 people. So essentially what we did is we created a mobile app, and now it's like a 6-year-old backstory that I'm telling you, while it's a norm everywhere now with all new age players. That mobile app, which was completely a four click journey, and a simple WhatsApp video, which was a dumb-proof video, which could educate the customer as well as the seller in multiple languages, did the job for us. Simple product, simple communication, simple processing. It helped our sellers who want to close things on their own. If you ask me, do I see that everybody eventually walking that path? We will all have to, because, as you rightly mentioned, given open architecture, there are cost pressures across the three elements of product pricing, people pricing, as well as the margins that need to be shared with the distributor. So if you need to manage these three, somewhere you have to bring in efficiencies, and that can only happen at a process and a people front is the way I look at it. Because
so time frame. If you can give a time frame, you think you agree with Asim's on 7 to 10 year time frame?
I think I agree with Asim on that time frame, because it's going to take some time for that industry to really evolve and believe in what I'm saying, and across partners, across players. Because right now we are all in a journey of open architecture where the bank says, I have a store. You can come and extract as much as you can. Right now the approach is that, where it will graduate to a situation where they'll say that, yes, we have a store, we have a customer, we got to give a array of products to a customer, so let that be the most efficient and the best product win on its own kind of a scenario, which will eventually happen. And hence that journey.
I appreciate what you're saying. That's great. Anup, let me just ask you in relation to this, but just another question. So, for example, we know today that it is like both of them agreed from an industry perspective, and they're right. You require sales when you're running such a large bank piece or any piece, because bankers definitely have their own priorities, and their focus on insurance will always be not amongst at least the top one or top two priorities. It will always be down in the lower order. But Anup, tell me, this brings into an interesting twist here when we are already talking about EOM, which means you are continuously going to experiment or pilot projects with API with Tele or API with virtual assistants, or come up with something else tomorrow. Now, this will all involve costs. Now, when the industry is already going through these cost pressures, how efficient you think the organization be open to invest into a lot of pilots and doing a lot of experimentation? And we all know when you do 10 experiments, nine are supposed to be failed, and only one is going to be given a tick mark. So how do you think the industry is getting up for experimenting a lot of which we will be COVID world on that?
Okay, so very interesting question, but let me first start off with the caveat that I may not have as many interesting stories and anecdotal example as my friend Amrish has. He's got he's a bank of examples right now. He's got series, but let me give you one picture of mine right now. See, in my view, uh, the digital onboarding, as my friend Seema and Amrish both agreed, is here to stay. Now, what part of the process will not be digital? Which means what part of the process you'll have to throw manpower to solve it. In my view, if the entire ecosystem, which is the products, which is what Amrish was saying, as long as the products, I would say, standardize and are easy to understand, and at one end, how the regulator helps to create awareness of insurance and create insurance products which are not as jargonized or as complex as they are today. It's becoming easier as we go. I remember the product that I bought 2001 with one of the India's largest public sector, insurance companies. Not the best and not what I understood. But now the products are changing, and as the products change, as the ecosystem changes, you will see more and more process getting digital and standardized and transparent. Today, whatever processes are complex, require high touch engagement, we will put people to the problem. But the reality is, you need to have, for a bank like model, if you don't have integrated with the bank technology architecture to understand the customer, understand the transaction of the customer, and create your platform to be able to create lookalikes and create personas which allow the seller to understand if it's Mr. Mehta who's from a B town, speaks Marwadi, and is comfortable in a conservative approach, looks at more fixed income products. If that profiling is understood by you and your seller is able to adapt to that knowledge and pitch, then does it require face-to-face thing? No. The data is giving him as much knowledge as he would have got through face-to-face interaction. So it's about solving the complex problem through a digital asset. To your question about do the companies have money to experiment? All of us. Today, 16 out of 23 life insurance companies are profitable. All of them know that longer term value creation for customer is not about just how much can you experiment. The reality is customers today getting an experience from Uber, Ola, Flipkart, Amazon, which is no touch, just zero touch. And I'm providing one of the best world-class experiences. The customers used to that level of expectation sets. Can you match it by making your product simpler, your ecosystem right, your processes right? You have to pivot. You like it or not, the bus is already sailed. The ship is already sailed. The customer is getting that experience. You can choose. I will try and put a person and saying, let me put an alpha guy who knows everything in the world about my company's servicing, about my products, and let's hope that he remembers to stay with me and that remember he serviced the customer with high intent. Not going to be possible. I think my sense of it is we have to learn to make sure that we put the money for building digital assets. And digital assets, my friend, does not cost you like your big bulky enterprise solution that you're buying from the big five. You have to build coding. You have to have the ability to be able to build applications which are customized to your user experience, to your end customer delight that you want to give. So it's a process which is hard, but can solve a long-term problem and can match to consumer expectation. The choice is here. I think all manufacturers in their own journeys are pivoting towards this entire digital experience basis. They're not staying to this whole big bulky enterprise and throw people to problem. That world has changed. That that management philosophy has gone. The world is different right now. Customers are different. We got to pivot to that. Is my view.
True, very true. I agree with you. I agree with you, Anup. Thank you so much. So I think let me just quickly summarize. I think it's been an interesting 1 hour conversation almost. I think what we are summarizing here is that preparedness was already there. Thankfully, I think as I started earlier, this is one of those pandemics where at least some bit of digital preparedness was already there because we were anyway getting up to digitally service and sell eventually online. Or at least we were getting prepared to it as an industry. Of course, some of the sectors had a leading edge, and within the insurance sector, I think health probably had a leading edge, or a general insurance or a motor insurance kind of product probably had a leading edge. And in life, we understood that probably term had a bit of leading edge, and customers, at least 2 to 3% of the overall population was probably used to this kind of buying and getting serviced. Last 15, 16 months, I guess we've experimented and creatively innovated a lot of other solutions, like Amrish spoke about WhatsApp, and we're talking about, and all of them touch base on how we can integrate ourselves in the way the customer wants to be serviced, irrespective of whether he's in rural or in a metro location. And I think these things will continue to evolve over the next, I believe, a year or so, and then we will see a transformation of how the manpower-driven industry will slowly start transitioning into slightly virtual assist kind of models, or maybe tele-assist kind of models, or various other new ways of models also come up, which could probably over a decade or so bring the cost efficiencies, and we will probably see a win-win, not just from a bancassurance perspective for a bank, also insurers, and most importantly, I think customer will be the winner, because in this entire thing, we see that customer is benefiting from all angles, and that's how pricing could go down, and eventually customer could be a winner. So I think it's an interesting conversation, interesting engagement. Good to see my friends, and good to see that they're all doing well. God has been kind, and thanks to the insurance summit. Thanks to my people here who have brought us together, and I hope the audience who have been watching this live currently, there was some useful discussions that we did, and we look forward to doing many of these going forward. So thank you, Aman, and thank you everybody for being such a lovely audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nikhil Verma, for moderating a very insightful panel discussion on Insurtech and Bancassurance. Thank you, Mr. Anup Sheth, Chief Distribution Officer, Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance, Mr. Amrish Kher, Senior Vice President IT, Max Life Insurance Company, and Mr. Aseem Gupta, Director and Head, Max Bupa Health Insurance Company. I'm sure our viewers really enjoyed this discussion and they gained a lot of knowledge from you guys. So thank you once again. Now to all our viewers, we will have a short break for about 25 minutes where you can go and have your lunch. You can go and visit the expo and the networking lounge. And we will resume back at 2:45 for our next round of panel discussions. Thank you.